Hare Krishna. Today we'll be remembering the divine qualities and pastimes of Srila Sanatan Goswami Prabhupada. Particularly, we'll be focusing on Rupa and Sanatan's first meeting with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Ramkeli, and subsequent to that, Sanatan Goswami's journey to Varanasi and the special mercy that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed upon Sanatan Goswami when he arrived in Varanasi, as described by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila. Vandeyaham Shri Guru Shri Jutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Shagarajatam Shaharam Raghunatam Nitam Tang Shajibam Shadvaitam Shavadutam Parijana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Varan Shahagana Lalita Shibishakam Vidangsha Mantra Guru Ajota Shika Guru Gon Tar Charane Agekore Abandon Vanchakalpa Turubiyascha Krupashinda Bebacha Poditanam Pavaneba Vaishnaveba Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Prachane Nirvishesha Shinavali Kashtesthane H.I. Goshai Kori Charana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Biginanash Abhishta Puran. Those who Jar Charana Bandhan glorify and offer prayers unto the lotus seat of the six Goswamis. Taha Hoite Biginanash. All of their Biginanash obstacles are removed, Abhishta Puran, and their spiritual desires are fulfilled. We're reading from Madhya Lila, chapter 1, text 180. Ardharatre Duibai Ailo Prabhusthane Pratame Mililo Nityananda Haridarshane. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is describing that Ardharatre, in the middle of the night, Rupa and Sanatan, Duibai, Ailo Prabhusthane, they went to the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present in Ramkeli. Ardharatre, why in the middle of the night? There was some concern. The devotees had gathered in such large numbers from the time Mahaprabhu began his journey, and the pretext of going to Vrindavan. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in chapter 17 of Madhya Lila the Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan. The desire of the Lord to go to Vrindavan had manifest many years before, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken initiation from Srila Ishwar Puri in Gaya. At that time also, Shachinandan was overwhelmed with love of Godhead and set out on the path for Vrindavan, but returned. Similarly, after taking sannyas, returned to Mayapur. Similarly, after taking sannyas, Gaudhari also, he began his journey for Vrindavan, and upon being requested by Shachimata in Shantipur, he made the decision to reside in Jagannath Puri. Upon arriving in Jagannath Puri, Gaudhari, he didn't remain very long, just a month or so in Jagannath Puri. After delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he then began his South Indian tour, which took 2 years. Upon arrival in, returning to Jagannath Puri, he remained for 2 years in Jagannath Puri. Due to the request of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy, he was unable to go to Vrindavan. And eventually they gave permission and he began his journey. And he mentioned before beginning his journey to Vrindavan that Gauda Deshe Hoy Mor Dui Shamasrai Janani Janabi E Dui Doyamoy. That in Gauda Desh I have two shelters, Janani Janobi, Sachimata and Maganga. E Dui Doyamoy, they're very merciful. So Mahaprabhu planned to go to Vrindavan via Bengal. And as he was journeying through Orissa and then into Bengal, Mongol Bhumi, on the bank of Maganga, he journeyed all the way up to North Bengal, and so many devotees, they gathered and they joined his Sankirtan party. Kaviraj Goswami just explains that wherever Shachinandan touched the road with his lotus feet, the devotees who had gathered, they would collect that earth, that mati, and they would take it or they put it on their heads. In this way, the road became completely destroyed. No road left. And so many devotees had gathered. And seeing his transcendental form and seeing him performing Sankirtan, they forgot everything about the material world. and simply accompanied him. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in ecstasy. When he arrived in Ramkelli, the Sankirtan was so tumultuous that Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan could be heard for 2 or 3 miles away. He's chanting in the holy name. And this attracted the attention of the Nawab. Mahaprabhu was doing Sankirtan just near the palace of the Nawab. This is the headquarters of the government of Bengal, Gauda. And for that reason, we are called Gaudiya Vaishnav. And Bengal is called Gauda Desh. The capital was Gauda at that time, of the time of Mahaprabhu's appearance. So his arrival in Gauda, it attracted the attention of the Nawab Hussain Shah. So the Nawab sent his chief constable of police to investigate, and he was completely astonished seeing the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is the capital of Bengal. He would have seen so many sannyasis. He mentioned, I've seen so many sadhus, but never have I seen a sadhu like this. He is more like a prince, having become filled with transcendental knowledge and accepted the renounced order of life. His body is so exquisite, like the beauty of 100 moons. And his features are so attractive, his soft lotus feet, his tall figure. He's wearing the cloth of a reddish cloth which looks like a rising sun. His teeth are like pearls, his lips are like red coral, his eyes are like lotus petals. His neck is like that of a lion, his shoulders were like that of an elephant. And he would occasionally erupt, and his body would appear like a jackfruit with horripilation and eruption. And the Nawab asked about how does he eat, how does he rest, what is his activities. He said he doesn't even think of eating or sleeping. He's so absorbed in chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The most astonishing thing he said is that within every hour he crashes to the ground, prema besh, in love of Godhead, unconscious, more than 100 times. Could you imagine 100 times in 1 hour? It's just simply falling down and getting up, falling down unconscious and getting up. So hearing this description, the Nawab's heart was changed. Poshupaki jude pashana bidore shuni jara gunagata. Poshupaki jude, the birds and the beasts cry. Pashana bidore, the stone melts. Shuni jara gunagata. When you hear, those who hear jara guna, the qualities of Nitai Gaur, Panama Kuruna, Bahuduijan Nitai Gaur Chandra. So the Nawab's heart changed, and he made the declaration that no one should disturb this sannyasi. He can go wherever he likes, he can say whatever he likes, and anyone who gives him any trouble, I will vanquish them and their entire family. So this declaration was made, but still the Hindu ministers who were in the government of the Nawab, they were concerned. So they didn't want to show much importance to the arrival of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and for that reason, Rupa and Sanatan, they went in the middle of the night, Ardharatre, so that no one would know that they were going and so much interested and so much concerned and so much interested about him. Pratame Milila Nityananda Haridas Shane. Upon arriving there, first of all, they met with Haridas Thakur and Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu went and told Lord Chaitanya that the two personalities had arrived. And then he brought them, Nityananda Prabhu brought Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with bunches of straw in their teeth. That's called Dante Trina Dhari. Bunch of straw in their teeth. It's something we don't see so much these days, but clearly described by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. Bunches of straw within their teeth, and the cloth bound around their neck. They came in and they fell down and offered their prostrated obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then, rising, they began to offer prayers to the Lord. Jai Jai, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Doyamoy, Patit Pavan, Jai Jai, Mahashai, O Patit Pavan, Saviour of the most fallen, Doyamoy, Ocean of mercy, full of mercy, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, all glories unto you. Now, Sanatan Goswami speaks and he's introducing themselves to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Generally, when we introduce ourselves to the great Vaishnavas, we generally mention all of the good things, all of the achievements. Oh, we've been a devotee so long, or this person and this position achieved so many things, and we generally mention that. However, Sanatan Goswami, he mentions the complete opposite. Not seeing that, Not seeing their great qualities, he simply mentions their disqualifications. Nichu jati, nichu shangi, potit odhom, kubishai kupe pori, goinanu jonum. Nichu jati, our birth was low. Nichu shangi, we associate with low people. Potit odhom, we are fallen, we are the lowest of humanity. Kubishai kupe pori, we have, Prabhupada describes, fallen into the well of sinful materialism. Kubishai kupe pori, goinanu jonom. In this way we've wasted our lives. Prabhupada's commenting in the purport that very significant, this statement of Sanatan Goswami introducing himself. The statement about how one can become fallen in the material world is made by the greatest authority in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, Sanatan Goswami, greatest authority. Rupa and Sanatan as Dabirkash and Shakara Malik associated with the Moguls who are naturally opposed to Brahminical culture and cow protection. Actually, these titles Prabhupada's mentioning here, Dabirkash, that was the name of Rupa Goswami, who was the private secretary of the Nawab, and Shakara Malik, the chief minister, the minister of finance. So they were holding very exalted posts in the government of Bengal at the time. These names you can still find used in the Mughal aristocratic society awarded upon administrative leaders. Their names from birth were Amar and Shantosh. And Mahaprabhu, we'll see, he initiates them and changes them, gives them the names Rupa and Sanatan at this time. Because they were employed by the Mughals, their original habits degenerated into those of the Mughal community. Since the symptoms of Brahminical culture were almost nil, they identified themselves with the lowest caste. So they looked at their most darkest side, that they're associating with these low-class people, and they considered themselves polluted, contaminated, fallen because of that. They didn't hide that. That's how they introduced themselves to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This quality of the Goswamis is very much emphasized by Srinivasacharya in his Sad Goswami Ashtakam. Nidra aha viharikadi vijito. They completely vijito conquered over nidra aha, eating and sleep, viharikadi and recreation. And at the same time they were attanta dino. Attanta means the extreme. They were excessively humble. It's not like in ISKCON we introduce ourselves, oh Prabhu, I'm so fallen, I am the most fallen. But this is the parlance in ISKCON, this is how we speak, but we don't actually believe that. We consider ourselves advanced compared to the people in general. But Rupa and Sanatan, they actually considered themselves extremely fallen and extremely unqualified. Jagai madhai hoite koti koti gun, adham potit papi amra duijon. So they're comparing themselves to Jagai and Madhai. They're koti koti gun, adham potit. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, koti koti, hundreds of thousands of times more adham and potit fallen than Jagai and Madhai. We can note that the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the fame of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his pastimes had reached the capital of Bengal, where Rupa and Sanatan were engaged, and they had heard about the deliverance of Jagai and Madhai, and they were already, we'll hear a little later also, they were corresponding to Shachinandan with letters, and they're reflecting on the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivering Jagai and Madhai and comparing themselves. You have delivered the two brothers, Jagai and Madhai, but to deliver them you didn't have to exert yourself. They never served low-class persons, nor were they instruments to abominable activities. Prabhupada's commenting that, he's making the point that this material world is so entangling that anyone can find themselves in a compromised position, as is being expressed by Rupa and Sanatan. Although they are fallen, this is people in general, although they are fallen, if they simply submit themselves at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they will be saved from sinful reactions, as is here we see Rupa and Sanatan demonstrating. Indeed, we are like dwarfs who want to capture the moon. Although we are completely unfit, a desire to receive your mercy is awakening in our minds. A little later, Kaviraj Goswami in the Rupshika, he's glorifying the renunciation of Rupa and Sanatan in Vrindavan by describing how when devotees from Bengal would go to Vrindavan and in return, then the Vaishnavas would inquire from them, how are Rupa and Sanatan? How do they eat? What are their activities? These are the questions that they asked. And those people who visited Vrindavan and saw the Rupa and Sanatan particularly, they would reply, Aniket duha bone jota brikagon ekek brike tole ekek ratare shayon. These two brothers are Aniket. They have no residence. Duhe, these two. Bone jota brikagon. In the forest, however many trees there are, ekek brike tole ekek ratare shayon. For one night they would sleep under the at the base of one tree, and then the next night they would go to another tree. I mean, what extreme renunciation. They engage almost 24 hours daily in rendering service to the Lord. They usually sleep only an hour and a half, and some days when they continuously chant, they forget to sleep at all. That's nidra aha viharikari vijito. They're completely conquered over eating and sleeping. Srila Rupa and Sanatan Goswami beg a little food from the houses of Brahmins. They give up all kinds of sense enjoyment. They subsist simply on dry bread and chickpeas. They carry only water pots. They wear torn quilts. They chant the holy names of Krishna and discuss his pastimes. In great jubilation, they also dance. Kabu bhakti rashastre koreya likon chaitanya kota shune kobe chaitanya chinton. They're engaged in Bhakti Rosh Shastra Koraya Likon, writing the Bhakti Shastras. Chaitanya Kotha Shune, discussing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes and teachings and qualities. Kore Chaitanya Chinton, and sometimes they're just thinking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after introducing themselves in this way, actually this affected Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tremendously. And it will be discussed on several occasions subsequently how much he was affected by the quality of humility of Rupa and Sanatan. So Mahaprabhu responds, Shuni Mahaprabhu kore, Shuno Dabirakash. So hearing this, Mahaprabhu responds, Shuno Dabirakash, listen Dabirakash. Tumi dui bai mor puraton dash. You two brothers are my eternal servants. You are my old servants. And now Mahaprabhu immediately in the first meeting, and recognizing Rupa and calls him Dabirakash here, immediately he initiates them and changes their names at this point. Aj hoite duhar naam Rup Sanatan Daina chara tomar Daina fete mormon. So Aj hoite, from today, Aj hoite tomar naam Rup Sanatan. Prabhupada comments that actually this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's initiation of Dabirakash and Shakar Malik. They approached the Lord with all humility, and the Lord accepted them as old servants, as eternal servants. And he changed their names. It is to be understood that it is essential a disciple changes his name at initiation. So Mahaprabhu says, Dhaina chara, give up your humility. Tomar dhaine fete morman. Your humility is, my heart is breaking to see you so humble. Now when, a little later, Mahaprabhu had returned to Jagannath Puri, and having not journeyed on to Vrindavan, and we'll discuss the reason why shortly, he returned to Jagannath Puri and he called all the Vaishnavas. This would have been at least 6 weeks to 2 months later, because Mahaprabhu, it takes a month to walk from Orissa, Jagannath Puri to Mayapur. And then Mahaprabhu had gone on further. He was in North Bengal. It's a 6-hour train ride. Gouda, Malda now it's called. So at least 6 weeks to 2 months later, Mahaprabhu had arrived back in Jagannath Puri. And still he's meditating on the humility of Rupa and Sanatan. And he called all of the devotees and he's speaking to Gadadhar Pandit in Puri, that Bidda Bhakti Buddhi Bole Param Prabin Tobu Apanake Mone Trinna Hoitihin. He's describing that these two brothers, that they're so qualified, they're so exalted in Bidda, in learning, in Bhakti, in devotion, in Buddhi, in intelligence, and Bole, in strength. Param Prabin, they're extremely advanced, extremely qualified. Tabu, however, Apaneke Mone Trinna Hoitehin, they consider themselves to be inferior to straw in the street. And that is their actual understanding of their position. And indeed, the humility of these two brothers could even melt stone, because I was very pleased with their behavior. I told them, Abba was explaining, that particularly the quality of humility attracted the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much. You've written several letters showing your humility, and I can understand your behavior from those letters. And then Mahaprabhu begins to advise Rupa and Sanatan how to act, how to carry on. Actually, they've come to take shelter of the Lord. They're pained, being entangled, and enmeshed in the entanglement of material existence. And Mahaprabhu begins to advise them. If a woman is attached to another man than her husband, she will appear very busy in household affairs, whilst that's externally, so that she's not suspected. And internally, she will be always meditating on association with the paramour. So this is the advice that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave them. And we can see that Mahaprabhu is very much concerned. This is an example of devotee care. He went out of his way, a long way out of his way, actually, to go to Puri. Subsequently, Sachinandan did. He went through Jharikand forest as the direct path, was much quicker, but he went a long way out of his way to go to Bengal. And he mentions here that I've come here to encourage you two brothers. Gauda nikot aishte nahi mo prayojan. I had no reason to come here to go to Desh. Tomra duhade kite mo ihan agamon. I've come here to see you two. What is that? Because he wants to encourage them. He wants to inspire them. He wants to deliver them. And subsequently we'll see Mahaprabhu in the subsequent meetings with Rupa and Sanatan. He empowers them to write the Bhakti Shastras. And here he is coming to reclaim them. And shortly, we'll see shortly after this meeting, Rupa Goswami, he quickly departs and divides his wealth and everything, and as described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and goes and meets Mahaprabhu. Having returned from Vrindavan, he meets Mahaprabhu in Prayagraj. Mahaprabhu further encourages the two brothers. Janame janame tumi dhui kinkar amar achirate Krishna tomare koribe udhar. So janme janme tumi dhui kinkar amar, you are my servants, my eternal servants. Janame janme, life after life. That's very encouraging. Mahaprabhu's revealing the actual position of Rupa and Sanatan. Achirate, very quickly, without delay. Achirate, Krishna tamai, koribe uda, Krishna will deliver you. So in this way, he's encouraging Rupa and Sanatan and giving them very specific advice on how to deal with their circumstances. Then the Lord placed his hands on the heads of Rupa and Sanatan, and immediately they clasped the lotus feet of the Lord and put the lotus feet of the Lord on their heads. And then the Lord embraced them. There were many devotees present during this first meeting between Rupa Sanatan and Sri Sachinandan. As we mentioned, Srila Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur first met Rupa and Sanatan and brought them into the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let's hear how the devotees who were present there reacted and responded to the interaction between Sachinandan and Rupa and Sanatan. Dui jone Prabhur Kripa Dekhi Bhakta Gone Hari Hari Bole Shobai Anandita Mone. Duijon Prabhupada Kripa Deki, seeing the mercy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was bestowing upon Rupa and Sanatan. Bhaktagane, all of the devotees. Hari Hari Bole Shobai, they all chanted the Hari Hari, Hari Hari, Anandita Mone, in great jubilation and bliss. So it wasn't there were no feelings of envy that how come Mahaprabhu was showing these new people so much attention and so much mercy. What about me? No. They were so much enlivened to see. They would have known the exalted posts Rupa and Sanatan were occupying, and the special mercy, in a short time, the special mercy that Mahaprabhu was bestowing upon them. Actually, I'm reflecting, because today we're also celebrating the disappearance day of Pujapad Srila Nitya Lila Pravishta Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, and that's similar how in a very short time Srila Prabhupada recognized his exalted qualification and bestowed so much mercy upon him, awarding him sannyas in a very short period of time, and bringing him into his personal entourage. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he received so much mercy from Prabhupada in that way. We're reflecting on that today also. So Mahaprabhu indicated that Rupa and Sanatan should take show a respect to all of the devotees present there. Shabade charane dhari, pore dhui bai. They fell down, pore at the lotus feet, charane dhui, and the dhari. They took the dust from the lotus feet of all those devotees present. Shabai bhale dhanna tumi paile goshai. And all the devotees said, Dhanna, oh, you're so fortunate, Paile Goshai, because you have attained shelter, lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who were those devotees? Kaviraj Goswami mentions Nityananda Haridash, Shribash Gadadhar, Mukunda Jagadananda, Murari Bakreshwar, and other devotees were present there. Now Rupa and Sanatan, having met with the Lord and been inspired, been enlivened, received so much mercy from him, been initiated. Sanatan Goswami, before departing, he speaks that although the king of Bengal is very respectful to you, it's best that you depart from this place now. He belongs to the Jabon class and should not be believed. So he made the declaration no one should disturb Mahaprabhu, but they were concerned that at any moment he could change his mind. This Nawab Hussain Shah, he had a history of abuse and terrifying to the Vaishnava community. So they were very concerned that at any moment things could change and Mahaprabhu could be put in a predicament. Actually, at that time, interesting, that Mahaprabhu makes the statement when he was doing Shankirtan near the palace of the Nawab, and there was some concern. They sent a messenger. The messenger couldn't even get the attention of Mahaprabhu. He was so absorbed in the Kirtan. And eventually he shared it with the Lord's devotees. And eventually the Lord understood there was some concern, and he stopped the Kirtan and made the declaration, a very well-known declaration. Pritibidi achai jota nagaradi gram shabatara procha hoibe mona. That all over the world, Pritibidi, all over the planet, Achai Jota Nagaradi Gram, as many towns and villages there are. Shabatra Procha Hoibe Mornam. In all of them, my holy name will be preached and chanted. So Mahaprabhu was consoling the devotees that no one can restrict the Sankirtan movement. Now Sanatan Goswami goes on to explain, to recommend that we think that there's no need for such a great crowd to accompany you on your pilgrimage to Vrindavan. You're going to Vrindavan with hundreds of thousands of people. It's not a fitting way to go on pilgrimage. In this connection, Prabhupada explains what is this issue. He says that for business purposes, large crowds of men are taken to different places of pilgrimage and money is collected from them. This is a very lucrative business, sure. But Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, expressing their opinion in the presence of Lord Chaitanya, disapproved of such crowded pilgrimages. Actually, when Lord Chaitanya visited Vrindavan, he visited alone and accepted only a servant at his devotee's request. And devotee's request, that can mean here that Sanatan Goswami is recommending that he doesn't go with such a huge crowd, so that request is there. And also, before departing from Jagannath Puri, the Mahaprabhu wanted to go alone, but the devotees requested him to at least take one or two assistants to cook for you, to carry your cloth, etc. Premavesha, pote tumi hobe ochetam, when you fall down on the path, premavesha, overwhelmed with love of Godhead, ochetam, unconscious, ishab shumigrike kore rokon, who will look after all of your necessities, your water pot, your set of cloth, etc. So in this way they requested Mahaprabhu to take an assistant with him, Balabhadra Bhattacharya. So making this request to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa and Sanatan Eta Boli, saying this, Charana Bondi, they offered more prayers to the lotus feet of the Lord, Gelo Duijon, and then they left that place, returned to their home. Prabhu Rishe Gram Hoite, Cholaite, Hoilamon, and the Lord, Hoite, Cholte, Hoilamon, he desired at that time to leave that place, Shegram Hoite, Cholite, Hoilamon. That also indicates that his real purpose in going to Ramkelly and going to Bengal was simply to meet with Rupa and Sanatan, connect with them, inspire them, deliver them, initiate them. And having done that, now is no need to carry on, no need to remain further in this village. So the Lord carried on. The next morning he carried on to Kanai Napashala. That's a famous place, very significant in Mahaprabhu's Lila. The Lord considered Sanatan Goswami's proposal. If I go to Mathura with such crowds behind me, the atmosphere would be disturbed. Now later, upon returning to Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu also, he's sharing with the devotees how Sanatan's advice was very valuable, and he actually changed his plans according to what Sanatan recommended. I decided that Sanatan had spoken very well. I was certainly being followed by a large crowd, and when people would see so many men, they would surely rebuke me, saying, here is another impostor. I was going to Vrindavan like a magician with his show. Certainly this is not good. I thought, instead of going to Vrindavan alone, I'm going with soldiers and the beating of drums. Therefore, fire upon me. Dulab, Durgam, She, Nirajan, Vrindavan, Ekhaki, Jaibo, Kiba, Shange Ekjon. That Durlab, which is very difficult to obtain, Vrindavan, Ekhaki Jaibo, I will go alone to Vrindavan. Kiba Shange Ekjon, or else I will take with me one assistant. Eta Chinti Pratakale Gangashnan Kori Nila Chale Jabo Boli Chalila Gouda Hari. So Eta Chinta, thinking this and making this decision. I won't go, all of these hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands, millions of people mentioned, who have gathered and are accompanying me. I won't carry on to Vrindavan with them. Nilachal Jabo Boli, I will go to Nilachal Dham, Chalila Gaudahari, and in that way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed from that place. It's interesting to note later when Mahaprabhu actually was journeying to Vrindavan and travelling through the Jarikan forest, he was very much pleased by the atmosphere and the environment alone in the forest with his two assistants. He would bathe 3 times a day in the water of waterfalls. In the morning they would make a little fire, he would heat himself, and in the evening with the limitless wood. And he said one day to Balabhadra Bhattacharya that we have travelled so far through the forest and we haven't received any trouble. Krishna is very merciful, bringing me on this path through the forest. Before this, I decided to go to Vrindavan and on the way go to Bengal and see my mother and the river Ganges and the devotees once again. I thought I would meet the devotees in Bengal and take them with me to Vrindavan. Eta bhabi gauda deshe koryalun gamon mata ganga bhakta deki shukhi hoilamon. Eta bhabi, thinking in this way, Gauda Deshe Korilo Gamon. I went to Gauda Desh, Mata Ganga Bhakta Deki, and I saw my mother, Ma Ganga, and all the devotees, Shukhi Hoilomon, and in this way I became very, very happy. But when I started from Vrindavan, thousands and millions of people gathered and began to go with me. In this way, I was going to Vrindavan with a big crowd, but Sanatan Mukhe Krishna Amar Shikailo, through the mouth of Sanatan, Sanatan Mukhe Krishna Amar Shikailo. Krishna gave me an important lesson. Taha Bigna Kore Bon Pote Lai Ailo. So now Mahaprabhu is saying that Bigna Kore, Krishna, he made that arrangement, that obstacle of thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people who had gathered with me. Bon Pote Lai Ailo. For this reason now I've gotten the opportunity to come through the forest and I'm enjoying this experience so much. After the first meeting in Ramkelly, Rupa Goswami was quickly able to extricate himself from the engagement in the government, and they had sent 2 Brahmins to Jagannath Puri to inquire about the plan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When would he actually depart for Vrindavan? Those 2 Brahmins had returned and said that Mahaprabhu was already departed. He didn't remain long in Jagannath Puri upon returning. And Rupa Goswami, as described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, that he divided all of his wealth and he left. And Mahaprabhu had already visited Vrindavan. Perhaps they were thinking that they would all be together in Vrindavan and remain there. In any case, Shachinandan, he didn't remain in Vrindavan very long. That's because his love of Godhead was multiplied hundreds of thousands of times, and the devotees Balabhadra Bhattacharya and Krishnadas decided to take him out of Vrindavan because it was too much to carry on. So he only remained in Vrindavan a couple of weeks, and journeying back from Vrindavan, he was in Prayagraj, back again along the bank of the Ganga. In those days, of course, there were no highways and trains and things, so people would journey on the bank of the river because that's where everyone was living and that's where civilization was based. So again, on the bank of the Ganga, Rupa Goswami was journeying to Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu was coming back, and they met in Prayagraj, and Dash Ashvamedagat, Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami. But Prabhupada comments that it appears that Rupa Goswami got permission to join Lord Chaitanya, but Sanatan Goswami did not. So Sanatan Goswami, he was thinking, the Nawab is very pleased with me. If the Nawab becomes angry with me, then it will be easier for me to get relief from this engagement. So this was Sanatan Goswami's strategy, that if the Nawab becomes angry with me, then it'll be easier for me. It won't be so. It'll be easier for me to escape. So on the pretext of bad health, he remained home, and very quickly his assistants, Sanatan Goswami's assistants, they took over all of his government responsibilities. And Bhattacharya Pandit Bish Trish Loya Bhagavat Bicha Kore Shabate Boshia. With Bish Trish, 20 or 30 Bhattacharya Pandits, scholars and of Vaishnav scholars, Bhagavat Bicha Kore Shabate Boshia, they were sitting, Shabate Boshia, Bhagavat Bicha Kore, and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. In this connection, Prabhupada explains that Srimad Bhagavatam is Srila Vyasadev's last mature contribution, and one should read and hear it in an assembly of realized souls whilst engaging in devotional service. At such a time, one can be liberated from all material bondage. This was the course taken by Sanatan Goswami, who retired from government service to study Srimad Bhagavatam with learned scholars. So he had submitted the sick leave to the Nawab, but the Nawab was so anxious that he suddenly, one day he came and he appeared in the house of Sanatan Goswami. And when he appeared there, all of the Trish Bhattacharya Pandit, the 20 or 30 scholars, they all stood up. In this regard, Prabhupada quotes from Bhagavad Gita, Satat Vibhutimat Shatvam Srimad Urjitamevat, that this is an example of Vibhuti Prakash, the king. The Brahmins, they stood up, and Sanatan Goswami, they stood up to show respect to the Nawab, who wasn't a Vaishnava in Sanatan Dharma, but they showed respect to him because he's an example of Vibhuti Prakash, a manifestation of the opulence of the Lord, being empowered to be the ruler of Bengal. So the Nawab's business was expanding Bengal and conquering the adjacent kingdoms. And for that reason, he relied upon Sanatan Goswami to organize and manage and supervise the administration of the government in Bengal. So he was explaining that, how can I go on with my campaigns? Sanatan Goswami wasn't very much appreciative of this, and he mentioned, you're going to Orissa to give disturbance to Lord Jagannath and his devotees. So he wasn't approving that, and he said that you can do with me as you like. So the Nawab was very angry, and he left in an angry mood, went off to conquer Orissa, and he ordered that Sanatan be arrested, and he would deal with it when he returned. You can visit the jail where Sanatan Goswami was kept imprisoned in Gouda. Now it's called Malda. And there's many, many monuments there. That was the capital of Bengal for a long time, the Mughal dynasty. And many monuments are there, and including the jail where Sanatan Goswami was kept. It doesn't actually look like a jail, it looks more like an assembly hall. But we can also understand that he was imprisoned and somewhat, there were some liberties he enjoyed, because he was able to receive the message from Rupa Goswami. He was able to receive 10,000 gold coins, which subsequently he used for his emancipation. And also he could go to the Ganga and take bath, etc. So this are the circumstances he was in. So he began his plan for emancipation by speaking to that jailkeeper in very charming words. You're a great scholar of Shastra and Quran, and you know that if you deliver a person and facilitate their taking shelter of the Lord, then you get spiritual credit for that. So I'm offering you spiritual credit and material credit. He offered the jailkeeper 5,000 gold coins. And the jailkeeper was saying, no, when the Nawab comes back, he'll finish me if you're not here. And Sanatan advised him what to say. That you tell him Sanatan went to the bank of the Ganga to relieve himself. And seeing Ma Ganga, he jumped in with the shackles on, and in this way he drowned and his body was washed away. Sanatan mentioned that you have nothing to fear. I will not remain in this kingdom. I will go to the holy land of Mecca. And then he placed another 2,000 gold coins. So there were 7,000 gold coins. So that was enough to convince the jailkeeper. And he released Sanatan. Sanatan was journeying. He immediately went. He immediately was completely absorbed in the goal of taking full shelter of the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was traveling very quickly through the jungles, not on the main road. And he came to an inn somewhere in between North Bengal and Varanasi. He came to an inn in the hilly tract of land. And then he requested that innkeeper to help him to cross over the hilly tract of land. So there was a palmist with that innkeeper, and he mentioned that this mendicant, this traveler, he has with him 7 gold coins. Oh. So the innkeeper planned that tonight I will kill him and take those gold coins. So he was arranging everything very nicely for Sanatan, the cooking facilities, the vegetables, the grains, everything, accommodation. And Sanatan Goswami, being very expert in administration and very experienced, he was wondering why this person is showing me so much attention and so much and facilitating us so much. As he said in Bengal, "Ati bhakti chor lakhon." Too much devotion is a sign of a thief. So then he asked Ishan, his servant, perhaps Ishan was with him also in the jail, because Ishan was with him when he escaped. So he asked Ishan, "Are you carrying something valuable?" And Ishan said, "Yeah, I'm carrying 7 gold coins." That's interesting. How wealthy were Rupa and Sanatan? How wealthy? Chaktva Turnamashesha Mandala Patishinim Shara Tuchavat. They spat out Tuchavat, the aristocratic position and the facilities and wealth of society that being highly posted that they are enjoying. Mandalapati, the leaders of the society. So much wealth that it was divided in 4 ways, Rupa Goswami, and 1/4 of that was kept for emergencies, of which he gave 10,000 gold coins to a grocer. So their wealth would have been immense, considering that for 7 gold coins the innkeeper was prepared to murder Sanatan Goswami. So we can understand the opulence and the position in society of Rupa and Sanatan. And therefore they're so much glorified as being great renunciates, real renunciates. Chakvatunamashesha mandalapadi shunim shratuchavat buddha dinagoneshako kurunaya kopina kontashito. They gave up all that opulence, aristocracy and wealth, buddha, and became kopina kontashito. They took shelter of the simple klopan and simple loincloth and outer cloth. Dinagoneshako kurunaya. In order to show mercy, Kurunaya Dinagon, upon the low fallen souls. Then Sanatan arrived in a place called Hajipur, and it so happened that Sanatan Goswami's sister's husband, whose name was Srikant, he was engaged in the government service also, and he was there for some government business, and he saw Sanatan Goswami. Srikanta he requested Sanatan Goswami to remain there in Hajipur for some days and take rest and take rest. But Sanatan Goswami wasn't interested in remaining even a moment. So at least Srikanta was able to offer him a very valuable blanket. And although it appears Sanatan Goswami was not so much requiring or interested, but he accepted that in order to reciprocate with the hospitality of his brother-in-law. So shortly after that time, Sanatan Goswami arrived in Varanasi, and Mahaprabhu at that time, having instructed Rupa Goswami in Prayagraj, had then carried on and had come to Varanasi. At that time, Mahaprabhu was residing in the house of Chandrasekhar, and he announced to Chandrasekhar, you go outside and you bring in that Vaishnava who's waiting there, you bring him in to my presence. Chandrasekhar, he went outside and he's looking, he doesn't see any Vaishnava. He sees a Muslim mendicant there, and he comes back and tells the Lord, there's no Vaishnava outside, but there is one Muslim mendicant. Mahaprabhu says, yes, him, bring him in. Chandrasekhar calls, oh Muslim mendicant, please come in, the Lord is calling you. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time, he got up and he came and he saw Sanatan Goswami in the courtyard of Chandrasekhar. And immediately he went up with great haste and he embraced Sanatan Goswami. You can just imagine. Of course, the eternal relationship is there, eternal Nitya Sebak, Puratan Das. So Mahaprabhu is so much elated, but he sees that he's just spent 10 days instructing Rupa Goswami. At that time, Sanatan Goswami was still in the jail, and now he sees Sanatan Goswami has come. He's been able to escape. So he embraces Sanatan Goswami. He was overwhelmed with ecstatic love. And Sanatan Goswami, when he saw the Lord and felt the embrace of the Lord, he similarly became overwhelmed with love of Godhead. Prabhu Sparshe, Premabishta Hoilo Sanatan, being embraced by the Lord. Prabhu Sparshe, being touched by the Lord. Premabishta Hoilo Sanatan, he was overwhelmed with love of Godhead. Morna Chuniha Kahe, God Goda Bochan, please do not touch me. Please do not touch me. In a faltering voice, he was requesting. Mahaprabhu, he remained embracing Sanatan Goswami, shoulder to shoulder. And Sanatan Goswami's incessant tears. Chandrasekhar was astonished to see this interaction between the two. So then, catching his hand, Mahaprabhu took Sanatan Goswami into the interior quarters and he gave him an elevated place to sit. And then, Sri Haste Goren Tar Anga Shamarjan, with his own hand, Samarjan, he's cleansing the body of Sanatan Goswami. He was not concerned about bathing and resting in his journey. You could imagine he would have been in a very unclean condition. Mahaprabhu was personally cleansing him. Teho kohe mo prabhu na kore sparshan. And to the Lord, Sanatan Goswami is praying, requesting, Prabhu, na kore sparshan, please do not touch me. Please do not touch me. Prabhu kohe, tamar sparshi pavitra hoite, bhakti bhal para, tume brahmanda sharite. By touching you, I am purified. Bhakti bhal para, because of your bhakti bhale, because of your strength of devotion. To me, Brahmanda Sharita, you are able to purify the entire Brahmanda, material manifestation, material universe. I'm touching you just to purify myself. By the force of your devotional service, you can purify the whole universe. Mahaprabhu quotes verses. In ecstasy, he quotes verses from Bhagavatam. Bhavad vidha bhagavatas tirtha bhuta shayam bibho tirtha korvanti tirthani shva antashtena godabrita. Yudhishthira Maharaj spoke to Vidura upon returning from his pilgrimage that tirtha korvanti tirthani, such devotees, Bhagavatas, you can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Shva antashtena godabrita, because you're carrying the Lord within your heart. And he quoted from the Hari Bhakti Shuddhodaya, Name Bhaktas Chatur Bedi Mad Bhakta Swapacha Preha Tasmai Deyam Tatograham Sha Cha Puja Jutahi Aham that even if a person is a Chaturvedi, a scholar of the four Vedas, if he's Name Bhakta, if he's not my devotee, he's not as dear to me as my devotee, Swapacha. A devotee born in a family of dog eaters is more dear to me than the Chaturvedi who's not my devotee. Tasmai Dhyayam, everything should be offered to him. Tato Graham, anything he offers should be accepted. Shacha Puja Jatahi Aham, he is as worshipable as I am. How fortunate we are on this most auspicious Tirubhav Titi Mahotsav of Srila Sanatan Goswami to hear his glories and his qualities described from the lotus lips of Sri Satchidananda Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tomar deki, tomar sparshi, gai tomar gun, shabendriya pal, eshastre nirupan. Tomar deki, seeing you, tomar sparshi, touching you, gai tomar gun, glorifying you, reciting your glories, your qualities, gai tomar gun, shabendriya pale. This is the Prabhupada described. One can perfect the purpose of all sense activity by touching you, by seeing you, by glorifying your transcendental qualities. Eta kohi, kohe Prabhu, shunu Sanatan. Saying this, the Lord went on to say, Krishna baro doyamoy, potit pavan. Lord Krishna is so merciful because he's delivered you. He's potit pavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, my dear Sanatan, please hear from me. Krishna is very merciful. He is the deliverer of all fallen souls. He has delivered you from Maha-Raurava. Prabhupada describes it. Srimad Bhagavatam describes Maha-Raurava as the hell meant for persons engaged in killing animals. For it is stated there that butchers and animal eaters go to hell. So, I do not know about the mercy of Krishna, Sanatan Goswami responded. All I can understand is that your mercy is causeless and you have delivered me from the entanglement of material life. And the Lord then inquired, how did you get free from custody? I understand you were arrested. And Sanatan Goswami narrated the whole story of his escape from the jail and his journey to Varanasi. Then the Lord requested Chandrasekhar to take Sanatan Goswami and get him shaved up and make him gentle, Prabhupada comments. Because Sanatan Goswami had grown a long beard, which Mahaprabhu did not like. And he requested Chandrasekhar to provide a change of clothes as well. Now Prabhupada comments that due to his long hair, moustache and beard, Sanatan Goswami looked like a Daravesh or hippie. Daravesh is the Mughal type sadhu. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not like Sanatan Goswami's hippie features, he immediately asked Chandrasekhar to get him shaved clean. The followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu consider long hair objectionable. So Tapan Mishra, he gave Sanatan Goswami requested an old cloth from Tapan Mishra, and he gave him an old used cloth, which he tore into pieces to make the kopin and the outer cloth. And Gochandra was very pleased to see Sanatan Goswami wearing that simple, renounced dress. One Brahmin invited Sanatan Goswami, a associate of Mahaprabhu, invited Sanatan Goswami to take his meals every day in his home whilst he remained in Varanasi. And Sanatan Goswami replied that Ami Madhu Kari Kori. Whilst I am in Varanasi, I will practice the tapasya of Madhukari, which Prabhupada explains is when the bees collect pollen from flower to flower, they do not remain a long time at one flower. A Madhukari is a saintly person or a mendicant who does not accept a full meal at any one house, but begs from door to door, taking a little food from each householder's place. In this way, he doesn't overeat or give householders unnecessary trouble. This Madhukari process is strictly followed by Babajis, or one who has attained the Paramhansha stage. Prabhupada comments, however, that this is not to be imitated. It is almost impossible to strictly follow Sanatan Goswami or Rupa Goswami. It's better to accept food offered to Krishna in the temple than to try to imitate Sanatan Goswami and Rupa Goswami. Sanatan Goswami had the valuable blanket that was gifted to him in Hajipur by his brother-in-law Srikanta, and although not saying anything, Mahaprabhu was repeatedly glancing at that blanket. And Sanatana Goswami could understand that Mahaprabhu was not very happy with that. So again he went back to the Ganga, and he saw a mendicant, a Bengali mendicant, washing an old quilt who had spread it out to dry. So he said to that mendicant, "My dear brother, please do me a favor. Trade me your quilt for my woolen blanket." How was this? The mendicant replied, "You appear like a very nice gentleman, but why are you joking with me in this way?" It means that no one would seriously ever engage in such a transaction. It must be a joke. "I'm not joking with you." Sanatan informed him, "I'm very serious. You can't exchange your torn quilt for this blanket." So that mendicant from Bengal, he agreed, and then Sanatana Goswami returned with that old quilt. A quilt means that different pieces of cloth sewn together. Old cloth. So upon returning, Mahaprabhu sees him and he mentions that Prabhu kohe, Mahaprabhu says, "Tomar bota kombal kothay gelo." Where did your valuable blanket go? Prabhu pade shob kotha goshai kohilo. Shob kotha, the whole incident, goshai kohilo, Sanatana Goswami explained to Prabhu pade, to the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu was very pleased, and he commented that it is contradictory to practice madhukari and at the same time wear a valuable blanket. One loses his spiritual strength by doing this, and one will become the object of jokes. Goshai kohe, Sanatana Goswami says, Jai kandilo kubishai bhog, that person who destroyed my material entanglement, tar ichai gelo mor shesh bishai rog, tar ichai, by that person's mercy, by that person's desire, tar ichai gelo mor shesh bishai rog. Mor shesh bishai rog means my last piece of material attraction. Mor shesh bishai rog gelo is now gone. Tar ichai, by the desire of that person who delivered me from material entanglement. In this way, Sanatana Goswami gives credit to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for being delivered of his last attachment. Although it appears he wasn't attached to that, but he's considering that Mahaprabhu's special mercy upon him. Prashanna hoy Prabhu tar kripa koilo, tar kripai prashna korite tar shakti hoilo. Prashanna hoy, Mahaprabhu was very much pleased with Sanatana Goswami, and tar kripa koilo, he bestowed his causeless mercy upon him. Tar kripai prashna korite tar shakti hoilo, by which Sanatana Goswami received spiritual strength to be able to inquire from him. And subsequent to this, the description of the initial meeting of Sanatana Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Varanasi, subsequent to that, Sanatana Goswami remained in Varanasi for 2 months, and Sri Sachinandan mercifully instructed him in the Sanatan Shikha, which actually is the most extensive section of philosophical information in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It extends for 5 chapters, and it is so important to us in our Sampradaya, Sanatan Shikha. On the basis of this meeting where Sanatan Shikha, where Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami, Sanatana Goswami Prabhupada, he wrote so many books for our Sampradaya. Nana Shastra Vicharanaka Nipano Shatdharma Shankstapako. And in this way, Shatdharma Shankstapan, he established the eternal principles and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nana Shastra Vicharanaka Nipon, being completely expert in the study of all of the different Shastras. When you read the books of the Goswamis, Rupa and Sanatan, you'll see a bibliography of so many Shastras that they're quoting from, in order to substantiate that Mahaprabhu spoke to Rupa and Sanatan succinctly, 10 days to Rupa Goswami, and subsequently to Sanatana Goswami, 2 months. And all of the philosophy is found in these instructions. And this was subsequently elaborated upon, and details given with reference to all of the revealed scriptures. And this is the wonderful contribution that Srila Sanatan Goswami Prabhupada makes to our Sampradaya. In addition to that, residing in Vrindavan, after the teachings in Varanasi, Sanatan Goswami was ordered to go to Vrindavan. H.I. Goshai, Jabe Braja Koila Bash, Radha Krishna Nitolila Korila Prakash. And so remaining in Vrindavan, they wrote the Bhakti Shastras and revealed the eternal pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And they also revealed and developed the holy places of Vrindavan as we know them today, and the temples, etc. As Mahaprabhu remained in Jagannath Puri, upon the request of Satyamata, he was not able to extensively remain in Vrindavan, and therefore he delegated this very important aspect of our movement to Rupa and Sanatan and the other Goswamis. So we reflect on the divine qualities and pastimes and the special mercy that Srila Sanatan Goswami received from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Today we were hearing about the initial meeting in Ramkeli, and then Sanatan Goswami's escape from the government captivity and his arrival in Varanasi, and the special mercy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed, and the special affection that he demonstrated in dealing with Sanatan Goswami upon that meeting in Varanasi. So we pray for the mercy of Srila Sanatan Goswami, a great Acharya in our Sampradaya, on this special day of his Tirubhav Titi Mahotsav. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.